What was that?
Rory has activated a fun filter.
That keeps happening to me. I was in actually a really important meeting early this week, and like the balloons kept going off. I don't know what's going on.
You didn't actually. You weren't celebrating. I thought you
I
were
know.
celebrating.
Yeah.
So
That,
No, it just keeps happening. I don't know why. I don't know why the balloons keep going off.
okay.
For listeners, a shower of balloons just went off in my chat window, and it keeps happening to me.
Rory, you are even the computer can't stop putting you in situations, capital S situations, man.
Right.
I know.
That's your lot in life.
Yeah. I think I've seen Cars more than any other movie in my life.
Really?
Okay.
Maybe Cars 2. I've seen one. Yeah.
That could be the case for Grand Prix for me. I'm not
I
sure.
love this already.
I did rewatch it just now, and
Grand Prix.
yeah, which took most of the after. I mean, it's a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
And I took some notes.
I love that our prep for this is just watching the same movie that we like. You watched Grand Prix, so neither of us have seen. I guess I've seen both of them. I guess I'm a little bit over prepped in that sense.
I mean, I feel like I mean, I know that I saw Cars at some point, and even like sort of recently. I mean, not recently, but I mean, it was during Natalia's lifetime.
You see Cars every day, really,
That's true.
if you think about it.
Yeah.
Damn. Listen to that. I'm looking at the Cars Wikipedia page right now. Budget $120 million. Box office $462 million.
Sounds right.
That's a slam dunk.
Yeah. What's the runtime on that? What's the runtime on Cars 2006?
117 minutes.
Just shy of 2. Okay. Yeah.
Just near perfect.
Should we just get into this?
Yes. Let's introduce the pod.
Okay.
What pod?
This one, our pod. Hi, welcome to Tired, the car podcast for people who understand that cars are bad, with your hosts, Rory Carroll, Maddie Riley, and me, Peter Hughes. We have a special episode today, something that...
Not all cars are bad, as it turns out. Some of the cars from 2006's Pixar slam dunk hit Cars are not bad at all. They're actually quite good.
So at some point during our podcasting adventure together, Rory and I discovered that we have some competing beliefs as to well, it's movie. Is it movie season? Is it Oscar season? Is it
Yeah,
time?
it's about yeah.
It's Oscar time. I don't really watch very many movies that come out in a given year, but I am a fan of the cinema, broadly speaking, and movies in general, and I do have some, I would say, cultivated tastes, some opinions. I do have some strong opinions about movies and movies that I think are good and bad. And it is my firm opinion that in the genre of car movies having to do with cars as a central theme, that it is my contention that nothing, that there is one film and one film only that really needs to be talked about, and that is the 1966 John Frankenheimer movie Grand Prix. Rory has a different opinion and different movie that he would nominate for that distinction.
Well, so I wouldn't go that far. I would say there are several films, car films. Rendezvous, I think, is a I think Ronin is probably my favorite car film.
Also
Another
Frankenheimer.
Frankenheimer. Yep.
Yeah, but I will stand for the premise of this podcast and outside that, I will say Cars, the 2006 Pixar film, is better than Grand Prix by a lot. That's my opinion, and that's what we're here to talk about. I think, right?
Yeah. Well, I think we should just kind of
just really quickly in the spirit of good sportsmanship. The opening sequence of Grand Prix, the Saul Bass title sequence of Grand Prix, is maybe some of the greatest footage ever committed to film. It is absolutely goosebumps every single time you watch it. It is fucking incredible.
Yeah, I concur. I mean, I watched it.
Things kind of fall off after that, but for me,
okay. I mean, I understand, but having just rewatched the entire thing for the first time in kind of a while, I don't know when the last time I watched the whole thing all the way through was. I mean, it had been several and perhaps many years. Although, as we were talking about, I think before we started seriously, before we started seriously potting, this might be for each of us. These movies might be the single movie that we've each watched more than any other. I'm not sure that.
Yes, I've seen Cars so many times. I've seen Cars 2 probably more times than this, but I've seen all the Cars movies so many times.
Yeah,
because I had children post.
True.
You had children. Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, the only time that I had never seen any of the Cars movies before I became a parent, and that was 5 years after the first Cars movie came out. If that's 2006, yeah.
And for listeners at home, I have seen neither of these films. I am vaguely culturally aware of the Cars franchise. You can't not be. My grandpa was a big fan and collected a lot of the Cars because he's Route 66 is a big childhood thing for him. And then I knew nothing of Grand Prix. Big fan of John Frankenheimer, Ronin, one of the great homoerotic films of all time, and 7 Days in May, big one for JFK heads. So I have to give it up for Frankenheimer.
You ever see Weekend of a Champion, the Jackie Stewart documentary from Monaco?
No.
When
it's just his whole race weekend.
Circa when?
1972.
Oh wow. No, I've never seen that.
Really, really fantastic though. But it's super intimate. Like it's him in his hotel room, like leading up to the race, and like a lot of really great footage of like setting up Monaco. We should actually include Matty like a list of other racing / motorsports / car films to watch for the because there are quite a few really good ones that like now that we're like settled on talking about Grand Prix and Cars, I'm thinking about like other better movies that I could
future installments. No, this is great.
Yeah.
The drivers are all on the grid now, and the Monaco Grand Prix is about to start.
So Grand Prix, 1966, John Frankenheimer movie. Frankenheimer was an established director at this point. I think Manchurian Candidate was 62. And he, that was kind of his big one. He had a few other kind of major, award nominated films as well. So, but he was still young, he was still in his kind of, imperial phase. And he wanted to make a racing movie, a movie about Formula One. And the overarching thing about this movie for me is that it is just, I think it is miraculous that it exists. And for the reason that, I know Formula One it has become kind of a trendy thing in the last few years, in the U.S. at least, after many decades of being this kind of obscure fringe sport. I don't care about Formula One now, and I haven't really for a long time. And the primary reason for that is not that I have any particular objection to really fast open wheel, open cockpit cars, but rather that all of the really fast open wheel, open cockpit cars, that racing that I do care about, most of it happened before I was born. and I'm pretty old, so so the thing that's so crazy to me about Grand Prix is that you had the first couple decades of Formula One. I mean, Grand Prix racing had existed in sort of less codified terms, going back to the 20s and 30s, and then a bit of a break for WW2. And when they kind of reconvened post-war, they created this new sanctioning body and now it was kind of under this umbrella of Formula One. So that was in the very early 50s. And as the cars got faster, as technology, I mean, this was technology now. I mean, anyway, this was a time of pretty intense technological development in terms of mechanical things, and figuring out how to make cars go fast was still there was still a lot of things to be learned, and Formula One was at the real kind of vanguard of that. And there was kind of a big revolution in the late 50s when some enterprising designers started experimenting with putting the engines behind the drivers and making the cars kind of much smaller, lighter, using things like disc brakes. And you get to this period in the mid 60s when just the form of the cars had become so pure and elemental and beautiful. They are like missiles with wheels. They're very small, very spindly, hugely powerful. But making power with pretty small engines, and because they're so light, you didn't have to be making monster horsepower for these things to just be like insanely fast. And you had this moment where this kind of this window in the mid 60s where these cars were just so stunning and so capable. And then just like a couple years after, like a year or two after this movie was shot, I mean, they shot it during the 1966 Formula One season, and just like a year or two later, the cars in this technological progression, the cars started sprouting wings, and then they also started sprouting advertising. That was like a new development in the late 60s, and with the result that just like a few years later, what had been these just like incredibly beautiful, sleek, simple forms were now kind of like they were getting kind of funky and kind of ugly. and instead of just being like green meant English car and red meant Italian car, now they're like festooned with advertising and sponsors, and the corporate colors of various, tobacco companies and whatever. So, the racing would continue to be interesting for a long time, but that moment, like the fact that movie, which was shot like using like super Panavision, is that the
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, Panavision.
70 millimeter fucking Panavision cameras, that they figured out ways to, they put them on the cars. They put them on Formula One cars, and on, you know, they took like a Ford GT40, which, you know, the cars that were winning at Le Mans in period. And they strapped one of these giant ass 70 millimeter Panavision cameras to the front of that, and had it running around racetracks with Formula One cars. So
I should say, to interject, some of the absolute best racing footage ever put on camera. I mean, like, astonishing.
This is the thing. Nobody has done it better since, because I mean, what the approach that Frankenheimer took to capturing this, and they fucked around, you know, they experimented with a lot of different, like, ways to damp the cameras so it would reduce the vibration on, you know, as, you know, when the in-car cameras or on-car cameras, because they were so big that they basically had to build platforms onto the cars to for the cameras to be on them. What they discovered was that no, the most effective thing is just to have the camera just bolted to the fucking car, so that you get every, like, you are experiencing every vibration, every ripple in the road, every you know, and it's like, and when you watch, and this is the thing, automobile racing is such an inherently exciting, dynamic, thrilling spectacle. And when Hollywood movie makers try to make a racing movie, they try to make it more than what it, you know, they try to, oh, how can we capture this excitement, you know, by adding to it, or by doing, you know, crazy edits or whatever. And it's always been the case. It's like, no, you're fucking it up. You're draining it of its life. Just show what it fucking is. And Frankenheimer did that better than anybody ever has. And the footage that they got, I mean, again, of these racetracks, of these people, because the other part of it is that, you know, they followed the F1 circus around for most of the 1966 season. They were going from race to race, and shooting at the races, during the races, sometimes like with a camera car out on track during the race. And this is the other part of it, is that you know, I mean, in so many ways, this movie could never happen again. I mean, both because of what I've just been talking about in terms of just like capturing this specific moment, like the best, most perfect moment, in my opinion, that you could have possibly chosen to make this movie, but also just in terms of just the it could never happen again. You will never have that kind of access. You know, it's like what's the TV show called now? The Formula One thing.
Drive to Survive. You know, it's like, I guess, I mean, that's kind of like sort of verité, right? But it's like this was such an incredible blending of making a fictional movie, but in this real environment and real milieu. And the wild thing is that the drivers of this era, and the other part, the other thing that I think that has to be talked about when you speak of Formula One and racing in this era, was just how insanely dangerous it was. I mean, the mortality rates for Formula One race car drivers were just appalling. I mean, like wartime levels, you know, where, you know, out of a given field in any season, you know, they're like, I don't know, like a quarter of them are going to be dead by the end of the year. I mean, just like shocking and absurd. And that was something that would change pretty soon after this movie was made as well.
and I'm not going to object to that because I mean obviously that's a good thing that that safety became a priority, but it is wild. I mean, you know, much of this movie, the kind of extra vehicular racing part of the movie concerns itself thematically with these questions of like the absurdity of this sport in which so many people are giving their lives to it, and the absurdity of you know, it like people would get killed in a race and the race wouldn't stop, you know, it would just keep going, and then they get to the end and they celebrate the winners, you know. It's like it's hard to imagine that happening now, you know. It's like it's so much more rare when drivers are badly injured or even killed. I mean, you know, it does still happen. It's still a dangerous thing, but it's taken so much more seriously, and I think I don't know that anybody would kind of roll with it in quite the same way that it was accepted then. But so yeah, so that's kind of my the overarching thing that I think about with Grand Prix is just like how crazy that we get to watch this, how crazy that this thing was made at this time in these places that you know that no longer exist. And for me, like you know, when I was getting into racing as a kid and reading about this stuff, and reading about these kind of heroic figures, the, you know, drivers of the 50s and 60s, and in this movie you get to see them. and it's like because they are in the background, they are playing bit parts, playing themselves, and in this way that's really remarkable.
I will say, so I've seen Grand Prix. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I was supposed to watch it today in preparation for this episode, but I didn't. But I will say is, like most of the genre of like car movies, so like especially racing movies, they come from a perspective generally. This Le Mans, which is the Steve McQueen thing, Rush, Ford versus Ferrari, come from this perspective of, and I would say like Ford versus Ferrari is less this way, but still somewhat this way. They come from this perspective of, isn't racing the coolest shit that has ever happened on the face of the earth? We should make a movie about it. And I would agree that racing is very cool. And it may be one of the coolest things that's ever happened is big time racing. But the trouble is most people don't understand that. So like racing, especially in America, is like a very obscure pursuit compared to like baseball or football or basketball or whatever other things that people do for sports.
Wrestling.
But most of the racing films that we have are, again, like filmed, the fundamental like underlying assumption with the movie is that this is really cool, and they don't make an effort really to explain why. They don't really make an effort to explain like what it's about or what you just kind of like plop down in this world and you're like, oh man, look. And then the worst sin of some of the other like Rush, the later more recent 2013 Ron Howard movie, they end up fictionalizing a bunch of the stuff to try to make it seem very interesting or make it seem more dramatic than it was, or whatever, like try to dramatize. The Ford versus Ferrari does a fair amount of this too.
Yeah. And
you end up with a film where it's like the racing people who went to go see it because they like racing are like, well, that's not what really happened, because they know. And the general audience people are like, this is fucking boring. I don't care about these fucking cars. And you end up with kind of a nowhere movie. I think like Grand Prix certainly made the effort to be authentic on the motorsport side. They made the effort to get some like incredible footage. And really like within the constraints of what was available at the time, like hooking cameras up to cars and like getting up close. Like it is some of the absolute best racing footage ever caught on film. No question. And I think like to you should watch the movie, but you should watch it in the way that I watch it, which is by fast forwarding through every piece of dialogue to the parts where the cars are racing on the track. I think though, even like the presence of all these race drivers or whatever, like as a film, it's like too much about just illustrating the racing stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, how many people went to go see Grand Prix in the theaters and were like, I don't know who these fucking people are at all. Like,
yeah, no, I'll grant you that. I mean, for sure, like, especially that stuff, if you're not me, if you didn't grow up like fucking completely geeked out on you know, these kind of obscure people from before you were born, and aren't like completely thrilled to see their corporeal reality brought to life on film. But I would argue though that the thing that the strength of Grand Prix, and especially of the racing thing, is that because it is so kind of verité, like it does not gild the lily, you know, in like it presents. It distills the what is just essentially exciting and thrilling about motorsports, and it just presents it to you just completely as it is, and just shows it to you, and it's just like, wow, you know, like I think even somebody who isn't a fan, just as a spectacle, you know, will find that footage pretty arresting. And
I totally agree with that. I mean, I think, like I said, it's worth watching. It's worth seeing the footage, but it just does not get there as a movie. I'm thinking a lot of, for some reason, Rush.
You know, I watched half of that movie at one point, and I just like I couldn't. It was just, I turned it off. It was just like, I'm not into this, man.
Chris Hemsworth as James Hunt and Daniel Bruhl as Niki Lauda. Really, I have to say, kind of a hateful film. I tried to watch it. There is some really good footage of like actual vintage cars like being run around the track. But it's another one too where like this is kind of the part of the flip side of Grand Prix, where it's like you can tell the filmmakers do not think that racing is interesting enough, so they have to throw a bunch of like tropes and archetypes of like guys into the story to make it more interesting. And it is, and it's like the fundamental like story of Rush, the battle between James Hunt, the playboy, and Niki Lauda, the like hyper sincere German who is also almost burned to death like midway through the season, is a fucking fantastic story, and it is absolutely ruined by this film. But not why they're here, not why we're here. But
dude,
let's do an episode where you two just talk shit about a movie. That's good content. That's good stuff.
Yeah, these are two movies that we
can roast a bunch of bad car movies for sure. And those movies, and especially with like Ford versus Ferrari and with Rush, I felt like so many of our car contemporaries who I feel like should know better talked about those movies and like in pretty glowing terms, where it's like, no, this is actually really good. And it's like, wait, is it? It's like, no.
They're just desperate to have a movie that's big. They're just desperate to have a movie about their little hobby, which is like.
And to me, it's like it's the opposite. It's like anytime I see like, oh, they're making a movie about this thing that I love, it's just like, ugh.
Oh yeah.
It's like I've seen the clips of that. Yeah. The Queen movie, the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, where it's like, this could not be less appealing. It's like, you know, I like a lot of Queen songs. I wouldn't say like I'm a big Queen fan, but it's like massively off-putting. Right.
You know, anything that you know about, you see that it's like, oh, they're gonna fuck this up. They're gonna like make this just like lame ass bastardized slick bullshit that completely misses the point of whatever it's about. You know,
and the more like intense it is about like an obscure subject, like if it's a single band or like if it's like racing or whatever, the odds of you inserting like every cliche and every like little like character type or whatever into the film to like make it recognizable to the broader audience. It's just so bad. Like the Rush thing. I remember like I think I went to a special screening for media of that and just being like, ugh, God, just like being mad about it the entire time.
I was actually. Go ahead, Maddie.
I was gonna say, when it's something you love and it's something that is more obscure, and then you see a thing like this, you understand also in that moment, like that's going to be many people's gateway into that
right.
thing.
No, exactly.
They'll think they know about that thing, and now your job for the rest of your life is going into conversations like, I'm gonna have to correct that as it's happening, and it's like, oh
or
man.
Or I'll just be like, nah, that was great. I love that movie. You're right. Please don't talk to me.
I was pleasantly surprised by the Ferrari movie that came out last year or the year before, which I kind of I had the same attitude about. It's just like, oh, this is going to be bullshit. This is going to suck. But I thought it was actually, and I think I ended up watching it on an airplane. But I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. Although, like the thing that like kind of my biggest objection to it going into it, I mean, I thought that they got most of the car stuff, like they did a respectable job with it. But the thing about it was this movie about Ferrari, the man, Enzo Ferrari, that was just about his personal life. It was about his marriage.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it just seemed like that part of the movie was like, okay, like it was good. It was, but for me, like, if you're going to make a movie about fucking Enzo Ferrari, his marriage and the fact that he had a mistress, those are the least interesting things about him as a person. You know, it's like, this guy is like a really fucking compelling character. For a million reasons, and neither one of them has anything to do with his sex life.
Right. Tabloids.
Right. Or, but it's like, or not even tabloid, but just like, no, it's like you can make, look, everybody's relationships are, interesting on some level, or you can make a compelling story about them. There's love stories or whatever. But, but it's like, if you're going to fucking go to the trouble of making a movie about it, like, I feel like Grand Prix, in the probably like 5 minutes that you get of fucking whatever his name is, Mineta, on screen in that movie, being the Enzo Ferrari character, I feel like you get more of an insight into who Enzo Ferrari actually was as a person than you get from Ferrari, the movie, the kind of acclaimed dramatic film about his personal life. I don't know. But yeah,
I think it's probably true.
Haven't seen it. I will. I'll watch it now.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's good. It's worth seeing.
I heard the special effects were really bad, and the car crashes all look very fake.
Yeah, I didn't think they weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be. It's like, it's nowhere as bad. And like most of the cars are like, there's a lot of real cars, and the fake cars actually look legit. Yeah. Anyway,
there we go.
It's
what we should do
way
is
better than
one
Ford
of these
versus Ferrari, which was dog shit.
One of the big services we could do to the car world is to take all these movies, Le Mans, Grand Prix, Ford versus Ferrari, Rush, and just make a compilation of all the good racing footage that's not shitty CGI, the Ferrari movie, and just have like a 90-minute YouTube video of just like good, incredible racing footage that came out of all these movies. Yeah,
turn it make a documentary of the documentary type footage.
Yeah.
Man, a spectacular move by Lightning McQueen. Yeah, good job.
So John Lasseter, John's a lifetime car guy. He was running Pixar at the time. He had this aspiration to make a car movie. But I think what happens in Cars is you have this. It is really, and this is stupid to say, but it is really like the most intentional kind of like love letter to car culture in a way that it can be annoying, where it's like there's so much detail, and there are so many Easter eggs, and there are so many inside jokes for car people that I find that part of it annoying, but it is so sweet. And I think like a lot of the early Pixar films, there is this like intrinsic sweetness in the movie where it's like can be a little bit like these are kids movies, right? Like they're cartoons for children. But there's like a genuineness about them, which is like very affecting. But the Cars thing, and I think like, you know, I have, this is like a little bit of prejudice. I do have like a relationship with a bunch of the guys who worked on these movies. And I have like a relationship to like I met last year. I've met a bunch of Pete Docter and Jay Ward and Bob Hawley all stayed at my house for a week one time. Drank all of my alcohol and then replaced it one for one with all of the exact bottle for bottle of all the alcohol that was in the house. But the essential like the film itself is like non-stop detail for detail. Like I said, it's kind of like everything that was current in 2006 about car culture, and everything that had kind of led up to it. There are all these like throwbacks and little references or whatever, and like getting people involved in the film who are like figures in racing and car culture, and like the Click and Clacker in the movie, and Richard Petty's in the movie. But it is but all that stuff, right? So there are all these little details and notes and little Easter eggs or whatever. But the bigger thing is fundamentally it's a good movie. And it's like if the movie was about something else, if the movie was about boats, no, I don't know. If the movie was about like if the car thing wasn't in there, it is a good story. The screenplay is tight, the performances are tight, and it's like fun to watch. And like the bigger piece of that is like the impact that the movie has had on car culture. This movie was made in 2006, almost 20 years ago, and today you still see there's Cars stuff. There's kids, little baby kids walking around with Cars shirts and their little Lightning McQueen toys or whatever. And it has like become an entry point to car culture. And I think like the biggest thing about this movie is that like, you know, in the early aughts or mid aughts or whatever, 2006, 2008, 2010, everybody was talking about like, oh, that's, you know, cars are dead and no one's really interested in this stuff anymore. And I think like, you know, it's not quantifiable, but I think like if you see the like rebirth of interest in like automotive topics like on YouTube and Instagram and all that stuff, like a lot of that I think has to owe itself in some way to this film. I think like a lot of little kids in the early aughts saw Cars and like got the bug or like started whatever, reinforced the bug or whatever. It's a cultural force.
Nice. Well, kids love Grand Prix too.
Yeah, right. Kids.
I probably would have. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it is like if you have unruly kids and you want to put them to sleep, that's a great film to put on. That's my kids have a phrase for movies like that where it's they won't watch it because it's too talky. So like movies with a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
You know, like today kids movies are like. They're like drugs. Like it's like they're paced in such a way that to keep kids like strung out where they can't even hear you talk when you talk to them. But yeah, any movie that was made before like 1999 or 2000 is considered too talky. There's too much dialogue. It's too talky.
Too talky.
Even when I was growing up, they were dumbing down everything they could for American kids. Like, if they were bringing in anything from another country, it's like, we are going to have to cut out 10 minutes of this, add in 20 jokes, and change all of this. No one can have a foreign name. We're going to have to change all of these and, like, make it, like, a completely different thing. And it's great. It's led up to now. We just have, like, it's Coco Melon everywhere all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, children's entertainment. I think, too, like, not to go too hard on the Pixar thing, but I think, like, there is something, like, as a parent where it's, like, you can tell when the people who made your child's entertainment, like, respect children and, like, want the best for them.
For sure.
Yes.
And you can also tell when the people who made your kids' entertainment believe that children are like livestock and like have no humanity and are not respected. And I think like their early Pixar stuff, and I think like this movie especially, like there's so much care and so much love put into it. Every single detail is considered. That, like, you know, like I said, as a parent, like that makes you feel really good about showing it to your kids versus like the absolute fucking schlock that is like subjected, the kids are subjected to.
I would argue
in a lot of
even
cases
kids
today.
know when they're being disrespected by stuff that's being shown to them. Like a sufficiently savvy kid will pick up on like, you think that I can't handle like you talking about a subject, or like if I hear a word, my head's gonna explode or something, or like, oh, you put in a bunch of dumb jokes, you think I'm stupid. Like I think a lot of kids can tell and do respond well to stuff that like is clearly by some aesthetic marker made for them, but that content wise presents ideas to them in a way that's like you know, you can be trusted to take in this information without us like holding your hand or like putting jingling keys in front of you.
Yeah, I think Cars 1 is the best. Cars 3 is pretty good, second best, and then Cars 2 is just a wild ride. Do not show it to your children unless you're prepared to watch it 40, 50 times.
Rory, do you prefer that or the Scooby-Doo and the Gang Meat Kiss?
I hate the Kiss one.
Yeah. Other cars too.
Yeah. It's a very tough. It's not good, and I also don't like that it turned my children into Kiss Army.
So funny. That's so funny. Oh my god.
You can't have little girls who are in the Kiss Army in 2025. That's just
hysterical.
Unfortunate.
They're taking it. They're reclaiming it.
Peter, they really are.
Peter, have you tried at any point to show your child a piece of car media?
Any piece of car media?
Yeah. Try to be like, here's what your dad's into. Click.
I would have to ask her. I mean, I'm sure she would say yes, but I can't think of what that would be. I mean, it's not like. I mean, she's generally pretty uninterested in cars, and kind of has never really, it just like she never got the bug, and I'm not, just as a parent, I'm not like a browbeating, no, you got to be into this. No, check this out. Look at this. Listen to this.
I mean, I will tell you, like the Cars experience for us happened because when our oldest was born, we didn't have cable. We didn't have like Netflix or whatever. But we had the Cars 2 Blu-ray that the Pixar guys left for us when they stayed at our house.
Oh wow!
And so like
this is entrapment.
we went on a road trip somewhere, and like we had a car with a TV in the back. And we put the Cars 2 thing on just to see how she would respond, and she was like hooked. Like it was like yes, movie they both still watch today. But like that was the first. I was very like we took them both to races as little kids, like just because we were going to be at races. But we didn't. I don't think I actively showed them anything car related until Cars 2, and like that became, and like I said, even the guys who worked on Cars 2 are like, you can skip that one, you know, like don't worry about it. But I think that was like the first thing. It's like I said, it's a movie they still watch. 8 years later, they still watch it.
I remember my dad putting on the old Speed Racer cartoon all the time when I was a kid. And we loved it. Like I was immediately like, "Oh, Speed Racer's my boyfriend, definitely." Yeah. I love this. This is great. This is the best thing that's ever happened. Stuff like it's on fire, and they're in cars, and there's a song, and he's cool, and I love him. And I remember, like, I mean, now I would be horrified to try and watch. I think the entire sort of project of bringing that show overseas. I'd probably have more fun trying to dig up the original stuff, but.
Did you ever see
the movies, the new ones?
No, the MTV, the new movie is fucking awesome.
That's what I hear.
You've seen that?
Yeah, I've never seen that.
The Wachowskis, right?
Oh yeah, no, it is phenomenal.
Yeah,
I hear it's
crazy.
It's so good.
I've heard of this.
There was a Liquid Television. This is how like I came across Speed Racer. Liquid Television was like a '90s MTV thing.
I remember that.
There was A Fast Driver is the Speed Racer parody.
Oh.
And that was like my introduction to the Speed Racer canon. Was like,
It was
Fast Driver.
ripe for jokes. I mean, I remember also
Yeah.
like watching a lot of Cartoon Network shows later, like a few years later as an older kid, and recognizing immediately when they were doing a Speed Racer parody, because I would be like,
Yeah.
I know exactly what that is.
Yeah.
No, I
mean, I
love
want to
that.
say, I mean, as somebody who is old enough to have been in the generation that was kind of exposed to that as a kid, I think that might have been the first Japanese animated
Yeah. They used
thing
to call it Japanimation.
yeah,
Animation.
to make it over here, or at least, I mean, it was
One of the first, yeah.
for sure the first one that I was aware of, and I mean, and as kids, and I mean, I remember watching this as like probably, I don't know, fucking 5-6-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I'd have to look up like what years that actually it was made and came to the U.S. But I think that might be the case, and but I mean, we knew it was Japanese, and we knew
Yeah.
that it was
Yeah.
like that the dubbing was that it was, you know, very badly dubbed, and that was part of what was that was part of the kind of funny charm and appeal of it, was that it was, you know, the
Speed, you're going to have to go and win the race. Aha.
right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I just remember, I feel like, I mean, I don't think I remember this from my actual childhood, but I feel like I did get like a VHS tape at some point, maybe in college, of some early Speed Racer episodes, and one of the lines that always stuck in my head was stop, or I'll stop you. That was great. Yeah.
Original run of Speed Racer was in April 1967 to March 1968. So actually contemporary to Grand Prix.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So two pieces of racing media from the 60s. Very different.
Hey, tired listeners, it's your producer pal Matty. It feels like forever since I last did one of these. Hello, this is a genuine tired two-parter. If you want to hear Peter and Rory continue their arguments in favor of the 1966 classic Grand Prix and the 2006 classic Cars, you're going to have to come on over to patreon.com/tiredpod, TIREDPOD, all one word, no space, no hyphen, tiredpod, to subscribe for $5 a month. You will get all of our past subscriber-only episodes. You'll get this one, and also including, crucially, my verdict on which movie I believe to be better based on their testimony. So, I hope you have enjoyed this episode, despite my audio quality. I apologize. We were at risk of a power outage, so I had to improvise a little bit. Thank you so much for listening if you are on the free feed. If you can't subscribe right now, if you're gonna wait and see a little longer, we hope to see you over on the Patreon sometime. We're just glad you're listening. And stay tired out there, all you nice people, and we will be back with you soon.